GhastlyGarlic Episode 52. Whispers and Giggles of a Haunted Hospital. Chapter 1, Echoes of Innocence. Nurse Claire Whitfield pushed open the heavy door to the pediatric ward. The smell of stale air and old dust hit her immediately, mingling with the faintest hint of something burnt. She shivered, though the cold seemed to come from within rather than from the chilly night air outside. The ward had been closed for years, ever since the tragic fire that claimed so many lives. Claire had heard stories about the old place, rumors of ghostly giggles and eerie apparitions. Tonight, those rumors felt unsettlingly real. She shone her flashlight across the room, its beam revealing a jumble of abandoned toys and old furniture. The walls were adorned with faded murals of smiling children, now barely visible through the grime and decay. As Claire moved deeper into the ward, she heard it, the soft, high-pitched giggling of children. It was faint at first, like a distant memory. She froze, her heart pounding in her chest. The sound grew louder, more insistent, filling the empty space with a disconcerting sense of presence. Claire approached the playroom, where the giggling seemed to be coming from. The door creaked as she pushed it open, revealing a room filled with broken toys and tattered curtains. The laughter stopped abruptly, replaced by an oppressive silence. Claire's breath came out in visible puffs, and she could feel the temperature in the room drop. The sound of her footsteps echoed eerily in the quiet room. She stepped cautiously, her flashlight casting long, wavering shadows on the walls. The giggles returned, now accompanied by the faint sound of children's voices whispering indistinctly. Claire felt an ice-cold draft, and the room seemed to warp around her, the walls closing in as if the very space was shifting. She glanced around, her flashlight landing on a toy box in the corner. As she approached, the giggles grew louder, more frantic. The lid of the toy box creaked open on its own, and Claire recoiled in shock. A doll with empty, glassy eyes stared back at her, its mouth frozen in a perpetual, silent scream. Claire turned her attention back to the rest of the room. The shadows seemed to twist and writhe, forming dark shapes that danced just out of the corner of her eye. The giggles were now accompanied by whispers, calling her name in eerie, childlike tones. Desperately trying to calm herself, Claire took a deep breath and focused on finding the source of the sound. She noticed that the temperature was dropping rapidly, her breath now forming thick clouds of mist in the cold air. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, urging her to follow them. As she moved toward the back of the room, she saw a flicker of movement, a shadow darting across the wall. She followed it to a small, darkened alcove. The giggles had turned into high-pitched, mocking laughter that echoed off the walls. Claire felt a chill run down her spine as she reached the alcove, where a small door led to an old storage room. The door was slightly ajar, and Claire hesitated before pushing it open. Inside, she found dusty shelves filled with old medical supplies and a single, cracked mirror. As she approached the mirror, the laughter stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. The reflection in the mirror was distorted, showing a shadowy figure standing behind her. Claire spun around, but there was no one there. The temperature in the room dropped even further, and Claire's breath turned into visible puffs of mist. She turned back to the mirror, her heart racing. The shadowy figure in the reflection seemed to reach out toward her, its eyes glowing with a cold, malevolent light. The giggles started again, this time accompanied by a chorus of ghostly whispers. The figure in the mirror began to take shape, revealing the ghostly visage of a child. The child's face was twisted in a silent scream, its eyes pleading for help. Claire stumbled backward, her mind racing. The laughter grew louder, more frenetic, as if the spirits were drawing closer. She could feel their cold, ghostly fingers brushing against her skin, pulling her deeper into their world of torment. With a final, desperate effort, Claire turned and fled the room, the ghostly laughter echoing in her ears. As she made her way back through the abandoned ward, she could feel the weight of the spirit's presence pressing down on her. The corridor seemed to stretch and warp, leading her deeper into the darkness. Chapter 2, Whispers from the Past. The hospital's archives were a place Claire Whitfield had rarely visited in her 3 years as a nurse. The room was tucked away in a forgotten corner of the hospital, its door creaking on its hinges as Claire pushed it open. Inside, the air was musty, carrying the scent of old paper and dust. The room was dimly lit by a single flickering fluorescent light, casting eerie shadows across the rows of metal filing cabinets and wooden shelves. Claire's flashlight bobbed in her hand, as she navigated through the labyrinth of files. The yellowed documents and faded photographs held secrets of the past, secrets she hoped would unravel the mystery of the giggling children. She approached a large metal cabinet marked Incident Reports and pulled out a folder labeled 1995 Fire. The folder was heavy with the weight of history. Claire's hands trembled slightly as she opened it. Inside were brittle documents and photographs of a time long gone. The first page was a typed report detailing the tragic fire that had consumed the pediatric ward, killing several children and causing irreparable damage. The report was sparse but chilling, brief mentions of negligence and safety violations, but little detail about the actual events of the fire. As Claire flipped through the documents, she found a series of photographs that captured the ward before the fire. The images were unsettling in their normalcy: brightly painted walls, cheerful murals, and smiling children. One photograph stood out. In the background, a nurse with a clipboard was captured mid-stride. Her stern expression and rigid posture contrasted sharply with the joyful atmosphere of the ward. Claire focused on the nurse's name tag, Eleanor Carter. The name was unfamiliar to Claire, but something about Eleanor's presence in the photograph struck her. She found additional documents detailing Eleanor's dismissal from the hospital months before the fire. Eleanor had been removed from her position due to unprofessional conduct, but the reports were vague and lacked specifics. Claire unearthed a series of complaints filed against the hospital's management regarding fire safety, all attributed to Eleanor's warnings. The complaints were ignored, and Eleanor had been quickly silenced. The records hinted at a possible cover-up. Eleanor had raised valid concerns, but the administration had chosen to overlook them. Flashback scene. The chapter transitions into a vivid flashback of the fire. The scene is chaotic and nightmarish, thick smoke billowing through the pediatric ward, flames licking the walls, and the desperate cries of children. The air is filled with the acrid smell of burning wood and the anguished wails of parents and staff. The fire's destructive path is relentless, consuming everything in its way. Amid the chaos, Eleanor Carter is seen rushing through the ward, her face etched with determination and fear. She tries to help the children, her efforts thwarted by the encroaching flames. Her attempts to rescue the children are futile, the fire overwhelms her, and she is engulfed in the inferno. The flashback ends with Eleanor's face twisted in despair, a haunting image of her final moments. Chapter 3: The Playroom of Nightmares. Claire's investigation led her to the abandoned pediatric ward. The playroom, once filled with laughter and joy, now resembled a scene from a horror movie. The vibrant murals had faded into grotesque shapes, and the once colorful toys were now charred and broken. Claire's flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the room's distorted features. The temperature dropped sharply, and Claire's breath formed icy clouds in the air. The giggles, once innocent, had taken on a sinister edge. The sound echoed eerily, growing louder as Claire ventured deeper into the room. The playroom seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. Claire felt an unsettling chill as she approached the row of old cribs, their metal bars twisted and scorched. The giggles were accompanied by the sound of phantom footsteps and the creaking of old furniture. The walls of the room seemed to close in, and Claire felt as though she was being watched. In the center of the room, Claire found an old rocking horse. Its paint was chipped and faded, and it sat amidst the debris like a ghostly relic. As Claire reached out to touch it, the horse began to rock on its own, and the laughter grew more frantic and mocking. Claire felt a cold, ghostly hand grip her arm, pulling her towards a hidden door behind the playroom's wall. Chapter 4: The Dark Force Unleashed. Claire followed the hidden door into a dark, narrow corridor. The air was heavy with an oppressive sense of dread. The corridor twisted and turned, leading her deeper into the hospital's depths. The giggles had become a sinister, mocking laughter, echoing off the walls. As Claire made her way through the corridor, she encountered ghostly apparitions of the children, disfigured and charred, their eyes hollow and mournful. They circled her, their expressions twisted in pain. The corridor seemed to stretch endlessly, with no clear path out. The presence of Eleanor's ghost grew stronger. Claire saw her in fleeting glimpses. A shadowy figure, with a haunting gaze, shifting between a spectral nurse and a monstrous entity. Eleanor's anger and sorrow were palpable, and she began to manipulate the environment, creating a maze of terror. Claire stumbled upon a room filled with remnants of the fire, a charred crib, singed toys, and a scorched teddy bear. The room was eerily silent except for the occasional low growl of Eleanor's ghost. Claire realized that the spirits were trapped in a loop, reliving their final moments. Eleanor's ghost manifested more forcefully. Her form was a grotesque amalgamation of anguish and fury. She seemed to feed on the children's torment, using their spirits to fuel her own anger. Claire confronted Eleanor's ghost, revealing her as a force of malevolence, manipulating the children's spirits to trap the living. Chapter 5: Confrontation and Escape. Claire's final confrontation with Eleanor was intense and harrowing. The corridor warped around her, the walls bending and shifting as Eleanor's dark force tried to trap her. Flames flickered in the corners, casting eerie shadows that danced and twisted. Claire confronted Eleanor's true nature, a vengeful spirit bound to the hospital by her guilt and anger. Using her knowledge of the fire and Eleanor's history, Claire faced the dark force directly. The confrontation was a battle of wills, with Eleanor's malevolence manifesting physically, creating a nightmarish maze of fire and shadows. Claire managed to break the hold of the dark force, revealing the truth behind Eleanor's torment. The ghost let out a mournful wail as she was released from her eternal anguish. The corridor returned to its normal state, but the air was still heavy with the echoes of the past. Epilogue: Claire left St. Mark's Hospital, forever changed by her experience. The giggles had faded, but the shadows of the past remained. Claire's encounter with the spirits had left her scarred, but she had gained a deeper understanding of the hospital's dark history. The remnants of the fire and the haunted corridor continued to serve as a chilling reminder of the tragedy that had occurred within its walls. The end.
Thanks for tuning in to our podcast. If you enjoyed our exploration of ghosts, mythical creatures, and urban legends, please share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling episodes. Until next time, my beloved listeners.